Hello, it's Michelle and welcome to my August 2014 reading wrap-up. This month I managed to finish 11 novels and 1 graphic novel. First up, I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I really adored this book. I thought Selena was an amazing character, an amazing protagonist. You just want to cheer for her so hard. You're just so behind her the entire time after what she's been through. And I thought her development as a character and having to decide whether to open up and trust people again was phenomenal. There was a love triangle in it a little bit, but it was really understated, and I thought that was very appropriate because of everything else that was going on in the book, but it was highly enjoyable. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next up, I read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and the geek in me just loved all the nerdy cultural references from the 80s, from books, music, gaming consoles, video games. That just all filled me with giddy nostalgia that was wonderful. I thought the characters were relatable and I enjoyed the plot. However, because I have played so many video games in my own lifetime, I thought that towards the end it got a little cliche and a little too convenient. So I did end up giving this 4 stars out of 5, but I really enjoyed reading it and would recommend it. Next, I read Raging Star by Moira Young, and this is the 3rd book and final book in the Dustlands trilogy. Loved the first 2. They are very action-packed. She writes amazing characters. There was no exception in this book. There was a new character named Peg that was amazing. She was so quirky and fun, and I wondered how she was really going to impact the storyline, and Moira did not let me down. Also, at 5% into this book, there was a major action scene. Who else can pull that off? Having a major action scene makes so much sense that soon into the book. She's an amazing writer. She's become one of my favorites. I can't wait to see what she writes next. I gave this 4 stars out of 5 like the rest of the series. Loved the series. Next, I picked up a new adult book. I was very interested in this one. The author is Noelle August, and if you've never heard of this person, that's because it's really a pen name for 2 authors writing together. And one of them is named Lauren Oberweger, and I really don't know anything about that author. But the other author is Veronica Rossi, who wrote the Under the Never Sky trilogy. And from that trilogy, Roar has to be one of my favorite characters of all time, especially for not being a main character. The story was giggle-worthy. There were so many awkward situations, and the banter throughout a lot of the book was just amazing. And the play between the 2 main characters. It was a pretty neat premise to the book, but I would say overall there was nothing truly original in the book, and the conflict didn't always feel like there was a true conflict, but still it was so fun to read. There should be a companion novel coming out sometime, and I will probably pick it up simply for the banter and the awkward situations alone. I did give this book 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next, I read a physical book. I had placed an order on bookoutlet.com and ended up reading 3 of the books that I got this month. The first one was The Killer's Tears, and the reason I wanted to read this is because I had never heard a premise anything like this before. The book is set in the southern tip of the country of Chile, and there is a remote house that is shared by a man and a wife and their small son, Paolo. And one night they get a visitor, which is kind of rare, but it does happen. And this stranger murders the parents and leaves the little boy alive and starts living in the house and raising the little boy. And this doesn't really raise any eyebrows simply because the place is so remote. There's a lot more that happens. The author of this is Anne-Laure Bondeau. And I was surprised at how hauntingly beautiful the writing was, and I love that it explored a kind of a weird combination of themes of like guilt and loving the people that you are currently with, and also of the healing power of love. I gave this 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. Then, because I was still thinking about Throne of Glass and Kale and Dorian and Selena and some of the other characters in the book, I decided to go ahead and start Crown of Midnight, which was the 2nd book. And I was expecting this to be better, and I was not disappointed. At about 45% in, I was like, oh, could we please just have, and they lived happily ever after, the end? Because what I had wanted to happen, happened, and I was just giddy about it. But, of course, there was more to the story, and we were only 45% in, so I knew it was going to take a dark turn. Well, it didn't just take one dark turn, it took 4 or 5 dark turns, but I was so invested in the story. I was just all in and could not wait to get to the end. As soon as I got to the end, I wanted to pick up Heir of Fire because I had seen it reviewed so many times. I mistakenly assumed it was out. It turns out it comes out, I believe, September 2nd. So you can expect to see that one in my September wrap-up. I did give Crown of Midnight 5 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. It was amazing. Next, I read Claiming Georgia Tate by Gigi Amato, I believe is maybe how you would pronounce that. This book is about Georgia Tate Jameson, and she is a young lady, and she has never known her mom, and what she knows of her father is not very good. She lives with Nana and Granddaddy Tate, and they take excellent care of her. Occasionally, she goes to see her father, but some not so great things happen the last time she goes, and she convinces Nana that she probably doesn't need to go back. But Nana ends up passing away before she lets on to Granddaddy Tate or anybody else about what went on. And so Granddaddy Tate makes the decision that little girls should live with their parents, and she's sent to live with her father. And from that point on, this book made me feel guilt. It made me feel anger and regret. But then somehow the author brings it back around to joy in just the most beautiful way. She introduces a concept called the joy game near the end of the book, and the book is worth reading simply for that, but do be forewarned, it does contain some disturbing content. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next up, I read Amulet Volume 1, and this is a graphic novel by Kazu Kibishi. This has been in my school library for years, and even my most reluctant readers eventually end up picking this up throughout the year. There were 5 books in the series. The 6th one has been released here late in August. I already took the book back to school, which is why I'm not holding up here. It has already been checked out again by the first student, who I'm sure will quickly spread word about how great it is. Now I see why the kids love it. The artwork is phenomenal. The characters are great. You really cheer for the main characters, which are a young sister and brother, and they are fighting to get their mom back. There's fantasy, there's magic, there are robots and rabbits and all kinds of stuff. It is action-packed and fast-paced, and I see why the kids like it. I probably won't get around to reading volumes 2 through 6 during this year because I would not want to take a reading opportunity away from the students at school, but maybe during a break I'll be able to pick them up. Anyway, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Then I was sort of in a book hangover from Crown of Midnight and was still disappointed that I couldn't yet read Heir of Fire, and I had heard about Kiss of Deception and thought that it sounded similar along some lines. It's written by Mary E. Pearson, and it follows a princess nicknamed Leah, and she is being forced to marry a prince from another country to strengthen the alliance between her country and that country. But she's headstrong, she's smart, and she just can't go through with it. So she runs away on the day of the wedding and goes to live in a nearby village incognito. Immediately, 2 men set out chasing her. One is an assassin, and one is the prince she was going to marry. They do find her at the same time, so all 3 characters interact with each other. You know that one young man is named Caden and one is named Rafe, but you don't know which one is the prince and which one is the assassin. And some chapters are, of course, from Leah's perspective, but some are from Caden's perspective, who you don't know is if he's the prince or the assassin. Some are from Rafe's perspective, who you also don't know is if they are the assassin or the prince. And then some chapters are written from the prince's perspective, so you know it's the prince, but you don't know if it's Rafe or Caden. And some are written from the assassin's perspective, and again, you don't know if that's Rafe or Caden. So that was pretty fun to try to guess. It is revealed to you partway through the book. And I want to say I had guessed it right, but my surety was not very high up there in percentage. So there was so much more to this book, though. I really thought her character growth was amazing. She eventually figures out that her choice to run away on the day of her wedding has had some negative repercussions for people who live in her country. And although she knows there will be negative consequences for her, she is brave enough to go back and face those consequences. And I really loved what the author did at the end, which was a twist I did not really see coming, that allows you to see how there is so much more room for world building and growth of this storyline later on. Really looking forward to book 2, which is currently scheduled to come out in 2015. I believe it's called Heart of Betrayal, if I remember right. Then I read another physical book, which was called Scrawl, and Scrawl follows Todd. Todd is a high school bully, and he has gotten in some trouble, and his punishment is that he has to go to the counselor's office every day after school, and all she is requiring him to do is to fill a notebook with writing. So she's not really giving him much direction, and so what this whole entire book is you reading what he has written in the notebook. Occasionally, in brackets and italics, she will ask him a question or want him to clarify something or tell her more about a situation, or sometimes ask him not to use swear words, things like that. The way this character changes throughout the book, I thought was really good. It was an enjoyable read. I'm not sure if a student that young could grow that much realistically, but it was just beautifully written, and I did give this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next, I read a book that I got a digital ARC of from NetGalley. I had requested long ago to get approved and had actually forgotten that I had requested it, and finally I got approved. I believe it comes out in September. It is a book called Zac and Mia, and it is about 2 young people who live in Australia and have been both diagnosed with cancer. And of course, immediately I thought of The Fault in Our Stars, and I wanted to see where the author would take this story compared to The Fault in Our Stars. Well, that's immediate dangerous territory, because it would be remarkable for A.J. Betts, this author, to have writing that could stand up to John Green's writing. And of course, it didn't quite stand up. The pacing of the book seemed off at times, and I think you were supposed to really adore both main characters, but really I only adored one of them. But I did like how it was very different from The Fault of Our Stars, and it got out of The Fault in Our Stars' shadow. I did give this 3 out of 5 stars in the end. If you enjoyed The Fault in Our Stars, you would probably enjoy this book as well. The last book that I finished in August 2014 was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I was looking for something cutesy and fun, and this delivered, but I was surprised how empathetic and sympathetic I was toward Kath. Her struggles with social skills and being outgoing in college, I could just really relate to. Rainbow Rowell is just a master of writing the details of a life. And I think what I enjoy most about her writing is there's no simple happy or simple sad for her characters. There are always these strands of things happening in their life, and while one strand might be going fabulously, another strand is not going so fabulously. So there is no simple, I'm happy overall, I'm sad overall, I'm happy overall, I'm sad overall. It is much more complex than that, just like real life is, and I think that's the genius of Rainbow Rowell's writing. I'm looking forward to picking up Attachments sometime in the near future. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And that was my month of August. Thanks for watching, and happy reading.